Hi everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday encouragement. You ever run into any unwritten rules you've had to deal with? Think about that for a moment and we'll come back to it. But first I want to give you some updates on things that are happening here at Cherry Avenue Christian Church. It's been great seeing more and more of you back worshiping with us in person on Sundays. I think with more people being vaccinated, it's helping folks feel more comfortable, and we're really glad to see you and see your faces now that masks aren't required anymore for those who are vaccinated. I was beginning to feel for a little while like we were never going to get back to this point, but it's been good to see, and slowly but surely more and more things that are, quote, normal will be happening. And we've got our children's classes back up and running during the worship hour at 10 o'clock. Both the preschool class and junior church for grades K through 5 are back, and we are grateful for that. During the Bible school hour at 9 o'clock, we're still working on staffing our children's classes, but we do have 2 adult classes meeting, one upstairs and one downstairs, and we hope that you'll take advantage of one of those. And don't forget our church-wide time of prayer. Sunday mornings at 9:30. For those of you who can't worship with us in person, it's a great time to pray. We've seen a lot of answered prayer, and we want to take time each week to lift up our voices in prayer together from wherever we are. And I hope you'll join us in doing that at 9:30 on Sundays for those of you who can't be with us in person. Well, I was sorting through my books recently, kind of weeding out ones I haven't used in 20 years to clear out my bookshelves. And I came across a book I got years ago called The Baseball Code, which is about the unwritten rules of baseball. Now, the regular baseball rule book is pretty complicated. My brother once looked at mine that I had been studying when I was an umpire, and he said, "You have to be a lawyer to understand this." And he's not far off. But beyond the rules enacted in the book, there are so many unwritten rules that you sort of just kind of learn as you go. For instance, you never bunt to break up a no-hitter. That just wouldn't be cricket. You don't stand next to the batter's box while the pitcher's warming up. And never, ever talk about a no-hitter while someone's pitching one. And sometimes the rules are kind of nebulous. You never bunt or steal bases when you're ahead by a lot of runs, but how many runs constitutes a lot kind of depends on what point in the game you are. Plus, as times change, the rules get questioned. It used to be you never flipped your bat extravagantly after hitting a home run because that was seen as showing up the pitcher. You could bet that the next time you came up, you were going to get hit with a pitch. But nowadays, that's debated because a lot of people see it as just having fun while you play the game. It's all so confusing. And there are other places where there are rules you follow that nobody ever really sat you down and taught you, but you just know. With the lack of privacy in many public men's rooms, some unwritten rules have developed over the years that nobody ever teaches you. Your dad never sits down and tells you these things. You just sort of instinctually pick up on them. Official rules for grammar and syntax in English are taught in school, at least somewhat. But there are other unofficial guidelines that we just learn somehow. For example, when you're describing something, there's an understood order of adjectives: opinion, size, age, shape, color, origin, material, and purpose. You'd never say he had a number 2 yellow little cute pencil. You say he had a cute little yellow number 2 pencil. Nobody ever teaches you that rule, and you never really think about it much. You just learn it growing up from the way everyone else speaks. But even within grammar, there are rules that many people believe can be ignored. In my home growing up, grammar was really stressed. But with the exception of split infinitives and ending sentences with prepositions, because those rules were borrowed from Latin, but they're impossible to commit in Latin. English is different, so my dad didn't enforce those. But to some, ending a sentence with a preposition is something up with which we will not put. The Mosaic Law in the Old Testament was very detailed. There were 613 laws that had to be followed. And on top of that, the rabbis added extra laws to keep you from breaking the original 13 laws. That was a ton to keep up with. Thankfully, Jesus changed things. He boiled the entire thing down to 2 things: love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. He even provided a standard for how to love people. He said, as I have loved you, that's how you're to love others. That's it. The rest of the instructions given in the New Testament are pretty much examples and illustrations of how that law plays out in practical everyday situations. And the good thing is, you don't need to be a lawyer to understand what's a loving thing to do most of the time. I know that slapping someone because he said something I don't like isn't loving. I know that telling someone he's stupid isn't loving. I don't remember Jesus ever doing that. It's pretty easy to recognize when I'm living according to Jesus' standard and when I'm not. I'm grateful that we don't have to keep up with a long list of laws as long as your arm and a bunch of unwritten rules that change depending on the circumstances and are open to interpretation. We know what we should do and what we shouldn't do because we inherently know what loving actions are. And if we ever wonder or doubt that point, Scripture gives us a lot of examples so we can know what we should do in most any situation. Now, as for actually doing it,